The big bad lie of big government has already destroyed much of America, and it can destroy the last remnants of democracy. Check it out. Leave your comments, ding the bell, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel. With kind of pulling together a few different threads that have to do with how our country is and how it got here. And, I think this is really important stuff. First of all, we see Ted Cruz going to Cancun because Texas has lost power and people are freezing to death. So, what does a politician who wants to be president of the United States and show how noble and how much he cares about his people, what does he do? Well, he and his wife head to Cancun. The story now is that he's caught a flight back. He had to take economy because that was all of it that was available. I mean, again, this is just what I'm seeing in the press. I haven't been able to personally confirm any of this. But I think that what it highlights is that when a political party depends on lies for its existence, rather than governing, rather than actually offering solutions to problems, rather than actually trying to address issues head on, when instead they rely on lies, this is the predictable result. You get politicians who are just like doing crazy. They don't care. They'll let a guy who incites an insurrection get off the hook. They'll let a guy who tries to blackmail a foreign country to help him get elected get off the hook. They'll let a guy who steals hundreds of millions of dollars from his own campaign programs, who illegally pays off hookers, porn stars and Playboy bunnies to shut them up during a campaign. They'll let him get off the hook. In fact, New York, the Southern District of New York has dropped their case against Donald Trump for paying off Stormy Daniels. The same case that sent Michael Cohen to prison for 3 years. So this is where you get with this. And there's even a bigger picture than this. This Republican ideology of big government is a terrible thing. The only purpose of government should be to run the police and the military. You don't want regulation of any kind of industry whatsoever. That philosophy, is so embedded in the Republican Party that when the Republicans in Texas in the 1970s, in the late 1970s, I believe it was during the Carter administration, when the federal government, or it might have been even the EPA, which came into being under Nixon over his veto the first time. But whatever it was, back in the day, Republicans in Texas decided they didn't want any federal regulation of their power system. None whatsoever. So they sealed it off from all the surrounding states because the federal government can only regulate interstate commerce. The Constitution specifically gives the federal government the authority to regulate interstate commerce. This is what Bobby Kennedy used to break up segregated lunch counters in Georgia and South Carolina and Alabama back in the 1960s, because they had Heinz ketchup on their lunch counters, which meant that they were buying something that was made in Pennsylvania. That's interstate commerce, and therefore he could bring in the police and say you can't have a segregated lunch counter. So you have to have the interstate commerce. So Texas said, okay, screw that. We're not going to have any interstate commerce. We're going to run our own power grid. And we're seeing the result right now. And now they're trying to whine. You get these fools on Fox News going, well, it's the frozen windmills. These are the same windmills that are working just fine in Norway and Greenland. If there's a problem with them, it's because Texas didn't plan for cold weather, which shouldn't have been a surprise. 10 years ago, they had literally the exact same, well, it didn't last as long and it wasn't quite as cold, but they had a massive snowstorm and their grid went down for a couple of days. And the state of Texas looked at this and said, you got to winterize your damn systems here. Your gas is freezing up. Your coal-fired power plants are going to freeze up. Your nuclear plants can't cool themselves properly because the water that they use for cooling freezes up. And presumably they could have predicted that there would be a problem with a few hundred of the over 10,000 windmills in Texas. But no, we're deregulated. We're not paying any attention to that because it's a party based on lies. That party based on lies has so gutted the American working class that here in Portland, Oregon, A couple of days ago, when we lost power, I tweeted, Louise and I were sleeping under 4 blankets with three cats and 2 dogs. We had no power, we had no lights, we had no heat for, the better part of a day and a night. And, it was kind of romantic being, under all those blankets watching, a Netflix movie on my iPhone that I was powering with, a battery stored up on in a flashlight. But we had it easy. I mean, it was only in the high 20s here in Portland, and we were only out of power for about a day. There are chunks of Portland where we're 3 days into this, still no power. But we're doing a good job of restoring it. But again, we've got a private for-profit power company that, you got to pay dividends to your shareholders. The various companies in Texas generated over $600 million in profits last year. Where did that money go? It went to the shareholders. It did not go to powering the line. So anyhow, we had this power failure here in Portland, and as a result, one of our Kroger chain stores, it's called Fred Meyer's, it's owned by Kroger's, the company that just pulled their pandemic pay bonuses from their workers. They followed what basically is not just policy, but in some regards the law. You've got spoiled food, it has to go in the dumpster. And they put it in the dumpster, but then for some bizarre reason, the employees of the store started guarding the dumpster against people coming to get this food. I mean, whole turkeys and hams and juices and cheese and a lot of stuff that only technically was bad. And there's this big uproar going on in Portland about it right now. The police showed up, and for a couple of hours, they prevented people from getting the food out of the dumpsters. And then the police decided, hey, this is crazy, and they left. And the people got the food out of the dumpsters. So kind of happy ending. But the bigger question that everybody is missing in this, hot debate here in Portland about whether, our mayor, Ted Wheeler, who's also the police commissioner, screwed up, or whether Kroger shouldn't have put it in the trash, or whether they should have put a table out in front or whatever. The big issue that's being ignored is the fact that we have thousands of homeless people in Portland who are hungry. This is not a problem that other developed countries, by and large, have. And it's a problem you can track right back to Reaganomics. For 40 years, we've had a homeless problem in this country that has been exploding. But somehow, our local newspaper, even the national stories, and it's all over Twitter. Oh, my God, the cops are terrible. Well, yeah, it was wrong for them to keep people out of the dumpster. Oh, my God, Kroger is terrible. Yeah, that was wrong, too. But nobody's asking the question, why were 100 homeless people down there looking for food? Or local residents who were trying to gather food from that dumpster to give to homeless people? Because there were some of them, too. And that tracks back to a Republican Party that just believes in lies. And I'll dig a little deeper into that in just a moment. I published a whole long rant about it that I think you'll find really fascinating over at thomhartmann.medium.com.